This is a protest which is going to the working class, going to the religious. It's spanning all of that. This isn't a simple demonstration. This is a revolution in the progress.
There is a bulletin from Reuters News. It says that Iran says it is ready for war, but also dialogue. Okay, war with whom? Who are they fighting? And who is the dialogue with? Is it with President Trump? And the Iran says it's maintaining communications with the U.S. in the face of mass protests that pose major challenges to the survival of this regime. What an honor it is to have Michael Rubin, who knows as much about this as just about anybody. He is a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, where he specializes in Iran, Turkey, and the broader Middle East. A former Pentagon official, Dr. Rubin has lived in post-revolution Iran, Yemen, and both pre- and post-war Iraq. He has also spent time with the Taliban before 9/11. And the young Shah, the 65-year-old successor to the former Shah of Iran, is somebody that he knows personally in several contacts. Michael Rubin, uh, what is going on when Iran says it's ready for war? Are they talking about a civil war?
No, the Iranians are full of bluster, and they're trying to suggest that if the regime is going to go down, they're going to try to take as many countries in the region with them as possible. Remember, this is an ideological regime. And so their hatred of the United States and Israel run deep. Their hatred of many of the moderate Arab countries in which the United States may have a military presence also runs deep. But the other thing which the Iranian regime is trying to do is create a crisis that will distract the Iranian public and rally them around the flag. Arguably, the greatest thing that ever happened to the Islamic Revolution was Saddam Hussein's invasion of Iran in 1980, because the revolution was starting to fall apart. And when Saddam Hussein invaded, it created a national emergency. Khomeini was allowed to rally people around the flag. Maybe Ali Khamenei is trying to create a similar dynamic.
Okay, right now there is a soundbite from Senator Lindsey Graham, a great ally of the president and leading Republican in Congress. And Senator Graham is urging President Trump to kill the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Is that a good idea?
Donald Trump, hitherto, has not wanted to do that because Donald Trump has made very clear to intermediaries that he still hopes to negotiate a nuclear deal. And what he would like is to have that nuclear deal signed by someone. And that someone would have to be the supreme leader of Iran, Ali Khamenei. At the same time, Trump and many of his advisors are afraid that if Khamenei falls without actually signing authority to someone else, it could create a civil war inside Iran. So Lindsey Graham is making the argument that Trump needs to do this because Ali Khamenei could come back stronger than before should he manage to put down the protesters. If this vacuum is created, Lindsey Graham is suggesting the protesters might win. The problem is, despite the pretensions of the former crown prince, Reza Pahlavi, it's not actually clear that there's any one single unifying figure. And so there is no magic formula here.
And the demonstrations that are going on, I know that there have been demonstrations in New York, in Los Angeles, in Paris, all around the world. Is the current regime that unpopular where perhaps even a majority of people in the Persian diaspora and in Iran itself are tired of the extremism and the mismanagement by the current regime.
Well, absolutely. First of all, let's be blunt. When it comes to the diaspora, the Persian diaspora is in a diaspora for a simple reason. They fled the Islamic Republic. So it's not a surprise that most of the people in Paris or New York or Washington or Los Angeles oppose the current regime. What's really changed is that it's now clear that the regime has absolutely no legitimacy at home. This protest wave started with the closure of the Tehran Bazaar. The important thing to understand with regard to the Tehran Bazaar is that they are religious, they are conservative, they should be among the prime backers of the Islamic Republic, and frankly, for 46 years they were. Now they're saying, with inflation, with the collapse of the Iranian currency, we can't afford to put food on the table, and that comes first. That's why this wave of protests is so significant.
And is it different from the waves of protest we've had before? I know that a lot of Americans look back several years and they look at different signs of unrest from Iran. Is this different in a substantive way?
It's different for two reasons. First of all, it's not a protest movement that is predominantly um, dominated by an elite. It's not a student protest. It's not a women's civil society protest. This is a protest which is going to the working class, going to the religious. It's spanning all of that. But what's also made this different is it's much less a protest movement now than attempted revolution. We're starting to see um, tweets and even regime acknowledgments of colonels who have been killed, of people that were responsible for suppressing protests in the past who have been hunted down and executed by the protesters. This isn't a simple demonstration. This is a revolution in the progress.
One of the things that you have talked about is that there's a lot of optimism I know from people in Israel that once upon a time Israel and Iran were allies. But that is unlikely to change, is it? That they would again be on the same team? The idea that these arch enemies, Israel and Iran, is that likely to see a reconciliation if the regime falls?
Oh, I think the reconciliation would be almost immediate. And I've traveled across the region. I used to live in Iran as well. Remember, when it comes to anti-Israel feeling in the region, that's understandable when it comes to the frontline states with Israel. After all, they fought wars with Israel. And everyone in Israel knows someone that was killed in a war with Arabs or with by Arab terrorism, or vice versa. People in the Arab countries know someone who was killed in a war with Israel. That's not true when it comes to Iran. The 12-day war in June was exceptional and precise, but most Iranians harbor no grudge against Israelis.
A human rights group says that there have been 572 deaths already with violent conflicts going on in Iran. Here on the Michael Medved Show, we have the great privilege of speaking to Michael Rubin of the American Enterprise Institute. And he has two different pieces which you can read at our website at MichaelMedved.com. One, the fall of Iran could change everything, and the other, coming soon, the Iran civil war of 2026. Now, if that civil war culminates with the fall of the mullah's regime and the regime of the supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, if that change goes forward, you were suggesting that the biggest gainer diplomatically, militarily, just in terms of position and power, wouldn't be Israel. It wouldn't be the United States, though there would be gains for both countries. It was a surprising answer, and I hope you can explain it. Why do you believe that Turkey, of all places, would be the leading nation to gain from the fall of the mullah's regime?
Well, first of all, Michael, the analogy which I think we need to look at here before we get to Turkey is on February 15th, 1991, George H.W. Bush called on the people of Iraq to rise up and throw off the dictator Saddam. And then he stood by, and Saddam Hussein crushed the dissent. That's what we need to understand about Iran as we look at the current situation. But in answer to your question, Turkey has turned ideologically antagonistic towards the West, and it wants to promote Islamism. With Iran gone, Turkey would feel that the field is clear for them to become the chief engine of radical Islam, of Islamic extremism. And the fact that A, they can hide behind NATO, B, they're financed with Qatar by Qatari money. And even though I'm not sure the United States fully recognizes it, it looks like Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who we've looked at as a progressive trying to reform Saudi Arabia, is starting to switch sides again from the more pro-Western side towards the more pro-Turkey and Qatar side. And that can create a dynamic of resistance for the future.
In terms of all of that going on, what about Saudi Arabia? I know that they have been close to war. Iran has supported the Houthi rebels. Would the Houthis be badly damaged in their endeavors and murderous endeavors? Would they be badly damaged by a fall of the regime in Iran?
Absolutely, they would, unless they could find someone else to fund and finance them. That said, when we look at Iran's history of proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Hashd al-Shabi in Iraq, and the Houthis, all of them would suffer. But when we actually look at this, Michael, let's look at the bigger picture here. In 1952, Gamal Abdel Nasser overthrew the Egyptian monarchy, and suddenly there was a wave of Arab nationalism across the region. 1979, with the Islamic Revolution, there was a wave of Islamism. 2011, we had the Arab Spring, and think of all the countries which fell. Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, Syria, and Yemen fell into civil war. What we're seeing now in 2026 is as momentous. Now, when Nasser overthrew the Egyptian monarchy, a number of other Arab monarchs fell in Libya, in Syria, in Yemen, and so forth. The question I have now is if Reza Pahlavi returns to Iran and restores the monarchy, could we actually see that become a new model in other Arab states that are teetering on failure, like Iraq, like Syria, like Yemen?
And the answer?
The answer is it's possible. I mean, we're looking at a new Middle East where anything is possible, but the first thing we need to do is recognize that the Islamic Republic of Iran was never the apex of Iranian political evolution. It was always an anomaly, and just like the fall of the Soviet Union, the fall of the Ayatollahs will in the long run be a good thing.
Well, you were talking about Pahlavi, the young Shah, and the young Shah is now 65 years old. And reading your material, it sounds like he has a surprisingly durable popularity, given how much the public opinion had turned against his late father. Uh, can you imagine a situation in which the young Shah is actually ruling the nation?
Well, here's the thing. My criticism of Reza Pahlavi was always that the pendulum swung too far in the opposite direction. He recognized that his father was a dictator, and because of that, he was afraid to dictate. And so the Iranian opposition was like herding cats. It was very vociferous, and he refused to crack down. However, now that he's starting to crack down and taking criticism for it, trying to streamline, you've got a situation in Iran where there's all sorts of political factions. There's all sorts of ethnic groups. Who do you actually have that could be a unifying force? And when we look at, for example, the fall of Franco in Spain, the young Spanish king, even though he didn't have a lot of power, help smooth the return towards democracy. The question isn't whether Reza Pahlavi can become a monarch, a shah like his father was, but rather whether he can become a unifying symbolic figure that will hold the Iranian state together instead of allowing it to collapse in that civil war which I spoke about.
Don't they, according to historic teachings, the Pahlavi family sees themselves as direct linear descendants of Muhammad? Do they not?
That's not uncommon. So does the Moroccan government. So does the Jordanian government. It's a way to basically build legitimacy. Um, but the Pahlavis, and Pahlavi actually means champion in Persian, they also trace Iranian Persian greatness to that pre Islamic period. And one of the interesting aspects about Iran now is some polls show that only 30% of young Iranians identify as Shia. Many of them have
Wow.
turned against religion, either become atheists, and there's also a growing closet Christian community simply because they so fully want to turn the chapter on this hated clerical regime.
Does the clerical regime tolerate a Christian community?
They have a native Christian community, Syrian Orthodox, Armenian Orthodox. Traditionally, they've been much more repressive towards evangelicals, but the numbers are growing in a way which they may not be able to repress everyone.
Okay, this is all obviously tremendously momentous, fascinating, and extremely complicated. You can make sense of it if you take a look at the most recent piece at AEI. It is actually posted at our website at MichaelMedved.com. The piece, of course, is by Dr. Michael Rubin, and the fall of Iran could change everything. And God willing, change everything for the better for the West and for the United States of America. Michael, I appreciate your insight, and we will be watching all of these developments very closely.